Have you ever faced a difficult moment and didn't know what to do? Today, I want to share a story that might change the way you see challenges. It was a hot and silent afternoon. In a small village, where dusty roads blended with the dry wind, a woman sat at the door of her humble home. Her gaze was lost on the horizon, as if searching for an answer in the sky. Her name was Anna. Anna was a widow. Her husband, the man who had provided for their home, had passed away some time ago, leaving her alone with their young son. Since then, the daily struggle for survival had become harder and harder. Food was scarce, work was difficult to find, and each day felt like another heavy burden to bear. That afternoon, her son's stomach rumbled softly, like a quiet plea. Anna looked at him with a heavy heart. It had been 2 days since they had eaten only small portions of what little was left. Now, all she had was a handful of flour and a tiny bit of oil at the bottom of a jar, just enough to make one last piece of bread. She took a deep breath and stood up. Walking to her simple kitchen, she glanced at the few utensils that shimmered under the dim sunlight. She touched the jar of flour, feeling its texture between her fingers. That was all she had. The weight of reality pressed down on her like a storm about to break. Her heart prayed in silence. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but at that moment, she was sure of one thing: she would make that bread for her son, even if it was their last. Anna lit the fire with the little wood she had left. Her movements were slow, almost solemn, as if each gesture carried the weight of her decision. As she mixed the flour with the oil, she felt her heart tighten, but she tried not to let the sadness take over. Her son, sitting in the corner of their small home, watched her in silence. He understood, though he was too young to fully grasp all the hardships they were facing. As she prepared the dough, she heard footsteps approaching the door. Her heart raced. Who could it be? In times of scarcity, visitors were rare, and any unexpected arrival brought a mix of hope and fear. When she opened the door, Anna found herself face to face with a man of simple appearance, but with deep, calm eyes. His clothes were dusty from travel, and he held a staff in his hand. He was a prophet, a man of God. He greeted her kindly and, in a gentle voice, asked for a little water. Anna nodded and went to fetch it. She still had water, though she didn't know for how much longer. But when she returned to hand the small jar to the man, he made another request, one that took her by surprise. "Could you also bring me a piece of bread?" Anna's heart pounded. She glanced inside the house, where the bread was still being prepared. It was all she had left. If she gave it to the prophet, what would remain for her son? She took a deep breath and answered honestly, "Sir, I don't have any bread ready. I only have a handful of flour and a little oil. I'm preparing a final piece of bread for my son and me. After that, I don't know what will become of us." The prophet looked at her with a peaceful gaze and, with a certainty that seemed to come from something greater, spoke words Anna would never forget. "Do not be afraid. Go and do as you said, but first, make a small piece of bread for me. Then, prepare one for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord says: the flour in your jar will not run out, and the oil in your jug will not dry up until the day God sends rain upon this land." A shiver ran down Anna's spine. It was a difficult request. It seemed illogical. But at the same time, those words carried a power that touched her heart. She looked at her son, then at the prophet. Hunger roared inside her, but a quiet voice whispered in her heart, "Trust." And in an act of faith, she made her decision. Anna went back inside, her heart pounding. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the dough and began shaping it. Every movement felt heavy, as if she were caught between logic and faith. She knew that by giving that bread to the prophet, she would have nothing left. And yet, something deep inside told her she needed to trust. Her son watched in silence, not understanding why his mother was giving away their last meal to a stranger. But Anna didn't focus on the scarcity, she chose to focus on God. Once the bread was ready, she approached the prophet and handed it to him. He received it with a calm expression, as if he already knew what was about to happen. Anna stood there, unsure of what to do. Her heart still ached, but at the same time, an unexplainable peace began to rise within her. After the prophet had eaten, Anna took a deep breath and returned to the kitchen. With a tightness in her chest, she walked over to the jar of flour. When she looked inside, her heart nearly stopped. The flour was still there. She blinked, thinking she might be imagining things. She picked up the jar of oil and tilted it slightly. The golden liquid flowed as if it had never run low. Her heart raced. Trembling, she grabbed a handful of flour and began preparing more bread. And then, she realized, the flour never ran out. The oil kept flowing. A tear rolled down Anna's cheek. She covered her mouth with her hands, trying to hold back the overwhelming emotion. The impossible had just happened before her very eyes. God had multiplied what she had. That day, Anna learned that faith isn't just about waiting for a miracle, it's about taking the first step even when everything seems lost. And because she trusted, she and her son never went hungry again. But this story isn't over yet. God still had something incredible to teach Anna. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. The days passed, and the miracle continued. Every morning, when Anna went to the jar of flour and the jug of oil, she found just enough to sustain them. There was never an abundance, but there was never a lack. She and her son ate without fear, and the prophet Elijah remained in her home, bringing words of comfort and hope. Anna began to feel a peace she hadn't known in a long time. After so many years of fearing tomorrow, her heart was now at ease. She knew God was taking care of her. But life sometimes tests us when we least expect it. One morning, as she was preparing food, she heard a strange noise coming from the room where her son was sleeping. Her heart raced. She dropped everything and ran to him. Entering the small room, she found the boy lying still, his face pale, his body cold. Anna called out to him, but there was no response. She touched his face, tried to wake him, but he didn't move. His small chest didn't rise or fall. The reality hit her like a crushing blow. Her son was gone. Desperation overwhelmed Anna. She collapsed to her knees beside him, holding him in her arms as hot tears streamed down her face. How could this be happening? God had provided for her home, multiplied her food, and now he was taking her son away? Through her sobs, she stood up and went to Elijah. Her heart was shattered by pain and confusion. She looked at the prophet with tear-filled eyes and cried out, "Why did this happen? You came to my home, God gave me hope, and now he takes my son away?" Elijah watched her for a moment, saying nothing. Then, with a steady gaze, he took the boy from her arms and carried him upstairs. Anna stayed behind, her chest tight with grief, unsure of what she would do if she lost her son forever. Upstairs, Elijah laid the boy on the bed and fell to his knees. Lifting his hands to the heavens, he cried out, "Lord, my God, why have you brought this pain upon the woman who has sheltered me? Why have you taken her son's life? I beg you, Lord, bring this child back to life." The silence was heavy. Elijah stretched himself over the boy, pleading with God with all his faith. He did this once, twice, 3 times. And then, the impossible happened. The boy's body trembled slightly. His eyes opened. He took a deep breath, as if waking from a deep sleep. Elijah smiled. He picked up the boy and carried him down the stairs. Anna was curled up on the floor, quietly weeping. When she heard footsteps, she lifted her head. Her eyes widened as she saw Elijah bringing her son back to her. The boy looked at his mother and smiled. Anna ran to him, gathering him in her arms, feeling the warmth of his body, his heartbeat strong against her own. "He is alive," Elijah said, his eyes shining. "God has brought him back." Anna wept with joy. She looked at Elijah, then up to the sky. At that moment, everything became clear to her. "Now I know that the word of the Lord is true," she whispered, holding her son close. She had seen God move not only in the bread that never ran out, but in the very life restored to her child. From that day on, her faith was never the same. And this story teaches us something powerful. God doesn't just sustain us through difficult days, He surprises us with miracles beyond what we could ever imagine. If you've ever experienced a moment when God did the impossible in your life, share it in the comments. Your story could strengthen someone else's faith. This story teaches us that faith isn't just about believing in a miracle, it's about trusting even when everything seems lost. Anna was ready to accept the end, but God had a greater purpose. He didn't just multiply the food, He also restored her son's life, showing that His care goes beyond what we can see. How many times do we find ourselves in situations where there seems to be no way out? We focus on the lack, the pain, the impossible. But this story reminds us that God always has a plan. He works at the right time, in ways we can't understand, and turns even the darkest moments into testimonies of His glory. Maybe today, you're going through a desert. Maybe you're facing uncertainty, unsure of what tomorrow will bring. But remember this, God never forgets His children. He sees every tear, hears every prayer, and at the right moment, He moves. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and share this with someone who needs to hear this today. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when God did the impossible in your life? I would love to hear your story. May God bless you, and see you next time.